Abby Magby here. We have Sandra, is it Solial? And we also have Whitney Lennon here today. They're all here checking out our club, you guys. So hopefully we have some potential members in the room. I would also like to welcome all of the viewers who are tuning in virtually to enjoy our program today. And now to introduce our program, we have a Sal Point and U of A graduate, former Tuffy Vitoro, proud father to me and Larry, member since August of 2006, and with Robinstead Insurance. You know Jeff.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Today's speaker is Curtis Dawson. Oh, I'm sorry. Today's speaker is my friend Jim Turner. Jim's family moved to Tucson in 1951 as a kid with his asthma. As the Turner kids were growing up, their mom and dad took them on many unique sites, in Arizona that Arizona's famous for. Thus began his fascination with Grand Canyon State and its history. Here, Sue, I'll do it better this time. Ready? Sue? Ready? Want to do over?
You broke half my camera.
In 1974, Jim took his first class in Arizona history. He taught the subject at CDO High School in 1976 as part of his training for his bachelor's degree in secondary education. Jim continued to study Arizona's past over the years and began his lectures in 1998. He received his master's degree in U.S. history in 1999 and taught Arizona history as an adjunct professor at the University of Arizona the following year. In 2001, he began his career as a historian at the Arizona Historical Society, where his chief duty was to support the nonprofit history museums throughout the state. He taught many classes in Arizona history for the museum docents and the general public, and continues to create and present presentations ranging from the American Southwest to the history of Mexico. As the historian for the Arizona Historical Society, Jim has worked with more than 65 rural history museums, given workshops and presentations throughout the state, administered a grant program to provide small museums with archival supplies, computer software and hardware, as well as exhibit materials and equipment. He's conducted oral histories, wrote history articles for newspapers, magazines, and books, historical researcher and consultant. He's done a ton. And I just want to give you an idea, he's also won several awards. The Distinguished Service Award from the Museum Association of Arizona in 2008, and the C.L. Song Signing Award for the best article in the Journal of Arizona History in 1998. My fellow Rotarians and guests, please help me welcome today's speaker and good guy, Arizona historian extraordinaire, Jim Turner.
Thanks, Jeff. What an intro. He warned me about it, but he didn't tell me he was just going to read right off my resume, which is handy. Where is he getting all this detail? And then I realized, oh yeah, my resume is online. And when you start talking about publications and awards, it's definitely resume stuff. You know, that's not something that, but he missed one, and that is the award I got from the Pima County Friends of the Library, Southwest Books of the Year, for this book, which came out in 2011. It was in print for 5 years. We sold 7,000 copies, and then the publisher in Utah decided they couldn't make any money on it anymore. So this is one of the last books I have that I could sell. So you'll have to fight for it like the ladies at the bargain basement after the meeting, after the talk. Without further ado, I want to get right into Tucson history. I love Tucson history. I grew up here since I was a little kid. I like to say that I've lived here longer than most natives have lived here now. And I was made a honorary Tucsonense by Rudy Laos. And of course the Laos family goes back 8 generations probably. So I was very honored to be a Tucsonense, a descendant of Tucson. And I took my first class in Tucson history in 1974. John Dreyfus was the teacher. His father-in-law was Bob Leatherwood, who was the mayor of Tucson when the railroad arrived. So I've gotten this stuff directly from the horse's mouth. I've done a lot of oral histories, but a lot of the stuff, when the old timers say, you don't know as much as I do, I say, well, you know, I go back to, well, the 1700s. Actually, I can go back to 7000 BC. So I kind of do. But today I'm talking about territorial history. And one of the first, well, in 1848, parts of Arizona became part of the United States with the end of the Mexican-American War, but not south of the Gila River. We didn't become part until 1854 with the signature, with the treaty of the Gadsden Purchase Treaty. So in 1854, they signed the treaty. Officially, Tucson and southern Arizona is part of the United States. And on that date, absolutely nothing happened in Tucson. They did not, because they're in the middle of the Civil War, pre-Civil War era. They really didn't have, they couldn't afford to send troops. There was no reason to occupy Arizona. So the troops didn't come in until 1856. So for 2 years, there were Mexican troops here, but they were in the United States at the time. What brought people to Tucson, and I'd like to say this over and over again, we are not a cow town. We are not, and as a matter of fact, there is Roy Trackman wrote a book, From Cowtown to Metropolis, and he got it wrong. I mean, we never had a stockyard here. He's got his part right, because he was one of the early, and his father was too, but one of the first Anglo residents came in 1859, Sam Hughes. And of course there are still many, when they have a reunion, they have like 50 members of the Hughes family show up at the Historical Society. And Dick Hughes, longtime friend of mine, board member of the Arizona Historical Society. Sam was born in Wales, and they immigrated to Pennsylvania. Supposedly somebody showed Sam Hughes' father an ear corn that was like a foot long. And he said, I want to move somewhere where you can grow corn that big. But they did. They showed up in Pennsylvania, and Sam's father died when he was about 12, so he was kind of supporting the family. And that's the last schooling he ever had. But then Gold Rush hit, and he went off to California, the San Francisco, Sacramento area, and he set up a tent cafe. And so what he was doing is what historians like to call mining the miners. They're selling the $1 pies and such things as that. He went out hunting, shot a deer, he was loading the deer on the back of the mule, and the deer kicked him. Wasn't quite dead yet. And hit him in the lungs. He had some lung problems. So guess what? They had heard, this is after, in 59, the gold rush is kind of tapering off. The big mining companies are taking over in California, so the prospectors are looking for other places. They found gold along the Colorado River, the Yuma area, and north of the Yuma. Hadn't found it in Prescott yet, but he and some other prospectors showed up in Tucson in 1859, and he got sick immediately. And he was nursed back to health by the Santa Cruz family. And the Santa Cruz family had been here since the Spanish era, and there were Yaqui Indians in that family, and eventually Sam married Atanasia Santa Cruz. And so, but when he first got here, he wrote a diary, and there's a wonderful diary at the Arizona Historical Society. I could do 20 minutes on Sam alone, but it is one of those green ledger books, you know, and when you've got extras or you filled in for that year, then you can go to the back and you can write in whatever diary stuff you need. And so he block printed, remember 12 years old when he dropped out of school, And when I read it, I was so glad it wasn't one of those Virginians with the flowery script, because I had to read military officers usually in the 1870s were impossible to read because they had the double F's for S's and all of that. But here's Sam with his block printing. But it reminded me of Mark Twain. He said, never trust a man who only knows one way to spell a word. Because the spelling was interesting, to say the least. Well, we have it from his early days, what it was like when he got to Tucson. And he said we were right outside the wall. The whole town was, but in the 1840s, was still a walled city. And about 4 blocks on the side, 12 blocks altogether. And, but he said you could see the women going out for water with their ollas, wrapped in their rebozos with only one eye showing, coming as foxes. So in the 1850s, that kind of pre-Victorian romanticism with the Spanish was there for the Pennsylvania boys. You know, they just thought, oh, these women are amazing, they're exotic, they're just absolutely. But he said they decided to have a dance to welcome us. There were 4 or 5 guys there, prospectors. And so the way they have a dance is they find a warehouse or a barn, and they clear it out and they decorate it, and then they start a parade, and so that you know that something's going to happen. And you've got the guitarrón and the violin, and you just follow them to where the dance is going to be. So he said, we got to the fandango, is what he called it. We got to the fandango, and there were all kinds of people there, and they looked like they were all part of one big family. Well, actually they were. The way Spain and then Mexico colonized was family groups. And so the Samaniegos and the Redondos and all of these people, hey, it's mi primo. I still run into that. Oh yeah, when you go to like Silver City or something and you go through the relatives to find out who you're related. And they, oh, he's mi primo. So then you know, you're the cousin. And everybody was related. But he also said there were a lot of animals there, and there was a woman there, and she had a lot of pets with her, and cats and dogs, and she had a pig on a leash. And he thought, well, that's very strange, and I can't remember the words exactly, but he asked her, why do you have your pig on a leash? It seems like your dogs would be more. She said, I have heard that Americans are very fond of pork. So she was not protecting the dogs or the people, but there was another diary that said, we Hispanics welcomed the Americans and their guns, because they had a common enemy. The Apaches were still raiding Tucson, and they would come in and just grab the horses and run, basically. But this is not a town like some of the Texas towns where there was a lot of difficulty between Hispanics. It was because the Anglo population was so small, they intermarried, and because it was the frontier and they're miners, they didn't bring their wives with them. So that's the way it happened. And Sam went on to have all sorts of enterprises, and he liked to say he had a spoon in every soup. He diversified. He had a store. He had a farm. He had cattle. And I expect he probably had property as well. But that was Sam's deal, and became quite a businessman. What 2 things he's renowned for that are not all that great is that he had these fields, and he chopped a hole in the bank of the Santa Cruz, which ran a lot more frequently back then, and not knowing the hydrology of it, or the hydrology of it. We had some big rains, and the whole Santa Cruz River followed through that ditch, and then such a rush through it, rather than the Santa Cruz was kind of a low, shallow, meandering thing, it gouged out and backed up. And one of the locals said, Sam Hughes's ditch took a walk all the way back to Santa Fe Mission, the point of water where it comes up out of the ground. And so that was the beginning, around 1906, I think, might have been earlier, but that's the beginning of the Santa Cruz at Congress there being as, 30 feet wide and 20 feet deep. That gouging started because of Sam Hughes getting a little greedy with the water and not understanding what it was all about. The other thing is, we had something called the Camp Grant Massacre in April of 1870, and a lot of Tucsonans went there because there had been a lot of Apaches raiding in the Tucson area, and they killed mostly women and children, about 128 women and children. And Sam was supplied the arms, and his wife Athanasia actually molded the bullets for the Camp Grant Massacre. So about 10 or 20 years ago, no, probably 10 years ago, some books came out about Camp Grant, and Sam got, they wanted to change the name of the Sam Hughes School, the Sam Hughes neighborhood, but he was a Tucsonan and a Tucson businessman, and mostly did good stuff. And if you have to consider to judge, not judge by today's yardstick, because that was a situation where many of those people involved in that had relatives who had been killed by Apaches. So, moving right along, we've got a real businessman, that Pennsylvania immigrant, but now we have a true stage robber. Just the kind of thing you want, and everybody, when they hear I'm an Arizona historian, they want to talk about Tombstone, and I'm so sick of Tombstone. It reminds me, Preservation Hall in New Orleans, the Dixieland, they have a sign that says, requests, $1. Saints come marching in, $5. So I could probably gear my talks that way. I was a consultant for one of the best books on the OK Corral. It's called The Last Gunfight by Jeff Gwynne. But Bill Brazelton is a real, honest-to-goodness cowboy from Texas, probably 6'4", and a stage robber. And he robbed the stage. He came to Tucson in the 1870s. The Texas Rangers had kind of shifted from fighting Indians to now, okay, we're going to get rid of the outlaws. So all the outlaws in Texas in about 1873 decided we're going to come to Arizona, where there's A, not as much law enforcement, and B, we could just change our name. And so that's what he did. And he robbed the stage out by Marsh Station, which is Orange Grove, and you know where it is. It's kind of northwest, what would be close to Marsh Station? Is that out in that neighborhood, or have I got it south?
I was thinking Marsh Station Road is way out east.
Way out east, okay, then I've got the wrong one. I'm trying to think, but there's a stage station out by Point of Mountain. And so he was out in that La Cañada area, north of Tucson, by the big washes, and the stage had to go walk the wheels down into the arroyo and then back up. My father used to call them butcher knife washes because they go straight down and then back up. And Bill Brazelton hid behind a bush and waited for them to have to slow down to get down into that. They were on their way to Florence. And when they got down to the bottom, he had taken a flour sack, cut 2 holes in it, and just to be artistic, evidently nothing else to do, cut red felt in the shape of a mouth and put that on the flour sack. So he had decorated his mask, and I guess we could all do that these days. I just realized how topical that is. So he stepped out and he robbed the stage. Well, about 10 days later, the stage driver is riding the stage again. He's got a different guy riding shotgun, and they get to that spot, and the stage driver says, this is exactly the spot where that guy robbed the stage 10 days ago. And there he is again. He figured out if that's where the customers are, if it worked once, it'll work again. And so he robbed it a second time. This is all in the newspapers. I'm not making it up. Truth is more fun than fiction a lot of times. But I believe this is one of those stories where he put the horseshoes on his horse backwards, so they couldn't figure out. But, there were a lot of trackers in Arizona. It didn't work. What happened is they found a cabin at the base of a mountain, and it belonged to a fellow named Dave. I can't remember Dave's last name, but he worked at the stables in Tucson. And this guy, Bill Brazelton, came to town. He says, I'm going to live at your place, and you're not going to tell anybody that I'm robbing stages, or I'll kill you. So Dave hadn't told anybody. But once the lawmen figured it out, they went to Dave and said, hey, your house. And he says, okay, but make sure you get him, because if you don't, he's gonna think I ratted on him. So they went out there to the Tucson mountains, and they surrounded the house, told him to come out, and it was just like a SWAT team. You know, he just started shooting at them, and they started shooting back. I don't know how many bullets he took before he went down. But here's where Tucson is a little different. This is 1873, and we had just arrived a photographer named Henry Buman. And there were 3 generations of Buman photographers in Arizona. The last one was commercial up to the 1950s, and he was doing aerial commercial stuff. But Henry Buman was mostly taking pictures of Apaches and then going to World's Fair and selling the pictures. But they took Bill Brazelton, great big cowboy-looking guy, and put him on kind of a wooden dining room chair and propped him up against the sheriff's office. Dead. And Buman took his picture. And then they put the mask on him, and Buman took his picture again. So when you go to the Historical Society, you can look this up, probably in the Buman file. I'm not sure exactly where it is now. You've got the side-by-side with the mask and without, but that was the scared straight deterrent. This is what we do to stage robbers in Tucson. So yes, we were a Wild West town, at least for a little bit.
I like it.
But going, I knew you would. I mean, people don't want to hear, they want to hear that kind of stuff. And my golly, I fought it for years, and I said, if that's what they want, just give them the true stories. But, you know, that's what you want, that's what you get. But here's one completely different. The 7 Sisters of Carondelet. Yeah, who would have thought? I mean, where else have you got 7 sisters from St. Louis, Missouri, mostly from France, I believe. Well, Irish Catholic as well. Sister Monica Corrigan wrote a diary, and it's online through the U of A library, so you can read Sister Monica's story of their travels to Tucson, setting up St. Mary's Hospital in 1880, 81, something like that. I didn't do all my homework on this, so there won't be any quizzes. And I haven't done this talk in a long time, but I just really, these are my favorite stories, and they're in this book, some of them. The 7 Sisters are in this book. Show them what they won, man. So the 7 Sisters get on the railroad and go to San Francisco, and they're traveling in 1870. The railroad wasn't completed until 69. They're on a brand new railroad crossing the country from St. Louis. And then they get on a packet boat, steamboat, down to San Diego, and then across the desert in various conveyances. They get out to the heart of the Hollow Mountains, out in the middle of nowhere, near Salome. You can't miss it. It's right next to Salome, Arizona. But it's way out there by Gila Bend and past that, sort of between Gila Bend and Yuma. But they're out there, and they're at a stage station, and these prospectors come in, and they actually propose marriage. They had no idea what a nun was, so they had to explain, oh, we're already married. But, so they keep traveling, and they get to Picacho, and about the Pima villages just south of Phoenix, they picked up a military escort. And so the military are escorting them to Tucson, and they get near Picacho, and the horses and mules are starting to act up. And that generally means there's Apaches in the area. And so the soldiers just started all kinds of clamor and charged and hollered and everything else. Sister Monica thought it was so exciting. She wasn't scared at all. She just thought it was really exciting that they got to charge the horses, and there were no Apaches there. But they got to Tucson, and they were welcomed, and there were people on the roofs and everything else. And they set up a girls' school, and they set up the hospital. And the hospital's still there, by God. And then we have Oliver Comstock, probably the most unsung hero of Tucson. And you guys, as fundraisers, would really appreciate his story. He was a printer from Alabama and also a Southern Baptist minister, but one of his little girls got tuberculosis. And so he and 10 children, came to Tucson in 1907, and he lost that daughter and one other. But he set up, there was a tent city right at Park and Speedway. It took up the whole acre, and there was one electric light and one water spigot, and all of these canvas and wood tents. And one of the guys who grew up in the area said at night, all you could hear, it was so quiet on the desert, all you could hear was coughing all through from tent to tent. But Oliver Comstock, a typical early 1900s, had the big white mutton chop sideburns and a pith helmet, and he rode a bicycle with a soup kettle, and he would go from tent to tent and feed all of these people and minister to all of these people. And then he raised money for the Adams Street Mission, which was a hospital for TB. And it's on 10-something Adams Street, and it's still there. I think it's an apartment complex, but you can see it. It has a crenellated roof, you know, kind of like battlements, sort of like an old. So as you go up Park, you look on the west side, and you can see that because it's right at Park and Adams. Well, yeah, Adams Street. So it's still there, but Comstock joined every club there was. Oddfellows, Masons, and he doesn't mention Rotary. So this is early 1900s, but in order to raise funds, and he was one of the best fundraisers for TB hospitals that we ever had. And we had a writer here who came for his help, Harold Bell Wright. And Harold Bell Wright, at one point, sold more books than Mark Twain in the early 1900s. He wrote a book called The Mine with the Iron Door, which is about Tucson. And his one that made him famous was a play called Shepherd of the Hills in Branson, Missouri. And that is why Branson became famous, that Shepherd of the Hills play. It was about a preacher who got sick and had to go live in the mountains and set up his own. It was autobiographical. But he brought in, Harold Bell Wright brought in all sorts of playwrights and stars and funding and put on plays for the benefit of Comstock's hospital. And you can go down to the Harold Bell Wright files and see the opening night, congratulations from Douglas Fairbanks. Everybody knew Harold Bell Wright. He was nationally famous. So Comstock and Wright really helped the ailing. And then we have, well, I got to mention in passing, Anna Sherrillo. Anna Sherrillo, we have Sherrillo Gap out there in Oro Valley, and Dad and I used to drive up there to go hunting. But Anna Sherrillo was a milliner. She came to Tucson, and she was the richest woman in Tucson, according to the census. And you would think, oh, she must have sold a lot of dresses and hats. No, guess what else she did while she was in Tucson? She had a little house on Gay Alley. Gay Alley was named after Lieutenant Gay, who was an army man who was killed by Apaches. And a lot of the streets downtown are named after soldiers who had been killed by Apaches. In the 1870s, they decided, we'll do this. We'll name streets after it. And there's about half a dozen named after men killed by Apaches. And Lieutenant Gay was one of them. And so that's where the red light district was. And now it's where the Tucson Community Center is. So historians like to say, well, it's the same trade, it's just got a different name on it. They're selling something here. They're selling a product here. And so that's Anna Sherrillo. We had dance hall girls. We had the Bijou and the Gem Theater, and the girls in the balconies got the watered down drinks, and the men paid extra for them. And Lewis C. Hughes, who was Sam's brother, married Josephine Brawley, and they met at a Protestant, I don't know what denomination, but they met in seminary. They were both religious students. So he went on to be the territorial representative. She took over the newspaper. He ran the Arizona Daily Star. She started printing a John's list, all of the men that were seen in the balconies at these theaters. I know, it's just, she also, for the newspaper, the men no longer got paid on Fridays because they were just going to blow the money. It was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. So you didn't get paid till Monday, the paycheck got home. Yeah, absolutely. And I guess I've only got time for one more, and that would be George Smalley. He's my favorite. His daughter was born in Tucson in 1902. She lived to 1997. I interviewed her. I had about 60 hours of tape with India Smalley Moore. India Smalley Moore was the director of the Historical Society for a while, and many longtime Tucsonans know India. And her father was George Smalley. He married Lydia Roca. And the Rocas had been in Tucson. The grandfather had a store since 1864 in Tucson. So this is one of those Minnesota, Mexico marriages. And so George Smalley wrote for the newspapers here. He's a newspaper man. And he also wrote for Los Angeles Examiner and for the St. Louis newspapers, Recorder, I think it was. And he would write stories about outlaws. And he actually knew a train robber named Billy Stiles. Bert Alford and Billy Stiles robbed trains down by Wilcox. And he had heard that Billy Stiles was in the neighborhood. He had been captured and then escaped. And George Smalley said, that was the sheriff's fault. He shouldn't have humiliated him by putting him in shackles. So Billy Stiles sent a message to George Smalley, thank you for being nice. My mother reads your newspaper, kind of thing. And so George says, hey, are you in the area? He went out and got a picture. And Smalley is standing with his hands up. And there's Billy Stiles, actual train robber, holding his guns on George so that they could put it in the story that he wrote for the Los Angeles newspaper. So that's art imitating life, or life imitating art. I don't know what it is. But I should say, because the Ronstadts are represented here, actually Frederick from Germany was in the Tucson, Ajo area looking at copper mines in the 1850s. But Federico, I believe, probably early 1880s. And then all of those families, he married into, his first wife was half Mexican, half Jewish. Her father had been a soldier in the Civil War and had come from Pomerania, I think it was. And then his second wife, his second wife was Lupe Dalton, and her father was half English, half Mexican from Los Angeles, from Redondo Beach area. So you've got everything you can imagine in the Ronstadt family, and that is Tucson. It's multicultural marriages. But one more little story about the fort. We had Fort Lowell, probably the only fort that's still in existence, where they went out and fought Apaches from that fort. But it got big enough, because Tucson was a fairly big town, that they had a whole unit, a company that was a military band. And the band director, by the 1880s, it was tame enough in Tucson to bring the family. So there was a little boy, the band director's son at Fort Lowell, grew up to be a mayor of a famous city who, during the Depression, read the funny pages to the kids over the radio. LaGuardia, absolutely. Fiorella LaGuardia grew up at Fort Lowell. So on that note, those are the characters and the heroes of Tucson. Any questions or corrections? Or I feel safe doing that here. Okay.
I'm asking him right now,
Yep.
so I should stand on my head.
He's gonna ask you a question.
What am I doing? Yeah, the question is, I understand that the Arizona Historical Society, the three venues for it, the one in Tempe and the one downtown and the one on 2nd Street is having financial woes
Yeah.
a little bit. Can you talk about what the prognosis is for the museum?
No, I left them in 2009 and never went back. They never asked me back either, so I'm very happy with the situation. I'm sorry for what's going on, but I'd like to say they sort of all on themselves, but don't get me started.
Okay. Anyone have a happy question?
Okay.
thank you so much. Those were fantastic stories that I don't know about all of you out here, but I certainly have heard a lot of them. You know, thank you for taking the time to be here with us today. We have a tradition in our club in which we like our keynotes to sign a book in which we donate to our Make Way for Books library. And today's book is Bear Says Thanks. So I'll bring this down to you in a minute. Okay, and now we are going on to a birthday celebration. Today we're celebrating someone who's been a member since December of 2008, is a graduate of Southeast Missouri State University with a Bachelor of Science in Horticulture and Botany, which he uses quite regularly in his career at Colonial Life. Bruce and his lovely wife, Sandra, have downsized in recent years, and I don't know if you guys know this, but they recently purchased an RV, and they are spending their summers touring and exploring the country with their little terrier mix puppy. I can't remember your dog's name. I met him
Wilma and Skip.
Wilma and Skip. So come on up here, Bruce.
Thank you, President Jen. I appreciate it. Appreciate all of you. Rotary is one of the highlights of my week, as I know it is for you. You know, we talk to people about membership, and they say, you guys meet every week? And I can't imagine doing that, and now I can't imagine not meeting, you know, at least every week or every other week here with the pandemic. But thank you so much for your friendship. I enjoy the club tremendously. My sponsor, Leslie Galloway, my mentor, Jim Murphy, very important part of my life. So I'm thankful for this club, and this is the time of year to take a moment and talk about what we're thankful for and think about that. So I've got a check for the Rotary Foundation, Polio Plus for you, Jen, and I'll leave that here. But otherwise, thanks again, and we'll see you on the flip side.
Thank you so much, Bruce. Happy birthday. And now, I don't have a script, but we have past President Scott Vaughn, who is going to be saying a few words. I'll let him tell you what he's talking about. We'll keep the suspense going.
Thanks, Chris. This is where we would do the Paul Harris Fellow presentation. And I'm personally honored to express gratitude to both of these honorees as they exemplify the highest standards of leadership and service to others. But they're not here. Each of them separately called this morning and said with great apology, so sorry, we are not able to be there today. So that's okay. I mean, for Christ's sake, they're donors. So
Standards lower.
So let me skip to the last page. We now continue our tradition of giving a rarely valuable gift to our Paul Harris honorees. Would Charlotte Harris please come up? And Bob Logan, please come up. I would like you to stand in front of the podium, facing the audience. Thank you very much. Appropriately socially distanced. As they come up, let me tell you that Charlotte is really the project chief for Paul Harris Fellowships, but it includes all of the organized donations to Rotary International, and Bob and I kind of work for Charlotte. You do, right? So Bob and I share the opportunity to be the presenters from time to time. And Bob also, I think, invented the wacky gift presentation tradition. Well, let me give you some insight that Charlotte doesn't want me to say about how this gift thing really works. Charlotte and her late husband Mike, over their lifetime together, have acquired a huge amount of an archive of treasures. And from time to time, Charlotte goes through these treasures and finds something that's appropriate for the recipients of the award. And then my gift-giving skills are limited, and I'll usually supplement whatever she does with groceries. So we're going to withhold for the recipients that are not here Charlotte's gift. Thank you very much. When we had a conversation today, I couldn't help saying to her, she said she moved all this stuff from this over to this closet. And I said, it's like moving the chairs on the decks of the Titanic. She still has everything she's ever had. It's just amazing. So, the spirit of Thanksgiving moved me to bring you something seasonal and special. I would have brought it to those other folks. And just a minute. So last night, I went to Walgreens expecting that they would have something seasonal and nice. And what I was hoping is that they would have something like, what do you call those orange things? Something like these. Pumpkin.
That was good.
That's just a prop. I'm taking that. What did I do there? This is Walgreens now. I said, well, that's orange. I said, maybe something orange. So for each of you, I'm happy to give you Reese's Chocolate Lovers King Size. I still thought that maybe if I go to Safeway, they'll have something like that. And they did. So what they have is organic carnival squash. It's artistic and it's pumpkin-like. And I got 2 of them. And I would assure you that they're a little bit different. So I was going to try to match your hair color, but that didn't work out. So there you go, squash and squash. And you can be confident that I watched each of them for 20 seconds, singing happy birthday and all that shit. And let's hear it for these non-honorees.
Wow.
That was fancy.
That's special.
It was. All right. Sergeant Arms Gary, I think we're starting with me today.
Yes.
We are planning to have a holiday mixer on December 16th. It's going to be on the rooftop at Westward Look, outdoors. If I could get a show of hands to see, who all is interested. All right. Fantastic.
And the LED. Ellie, do we have you up?
Yeah.
Yes. Come on. And Cindy and Curtis and Bob and Charlotte.
All right, we're looking at that camera right there.
Okay.
Step that way a little bit.
Well, I wanted to say that, actually, where's Bob? Bob, he's right here. Because I can't do this without him and all of you. And I am giving you the announcement of you receiving the Rotary citation. It's an honor to receive a citation. It takes strong leadership. It takes strong teamwork. It takes focus, preparation, planning, and follow-through. And you did it all. This past year, 2019, 2020, you earned the Rotary citation. And not only that, you earned it with Rotary International Presidential Distinction, which you achieved the platinum level. I know. It should be 3 Oscars here. And what you did is that not only you achieved the required goals that supports Rotary strategic priorities, but you went beyond that and earned 3 more goals, and that's how you reached the platinum level. So you earned 5 goals no, I shouldn't say earned, but you achieved 5 goals under the category Uniting People and 7 goals under the category Taking Action. So you worked so hard, and you all received then this Rotary citation at the platinum level, and you're such an outstanding club. You're generous, you're hardworking, and I wish you congratulations, and I want to say it was a real honor serving you as the district governor this past year. So congratulations, Bob, and all of you.
I guess his reign of terror wasn't that bad.
He started fitting.
What's that movie called? All About Bob? What is it called?
Can't understand you.
What'd you say?
I said, what's that movie, All About Bob? Yeah.
Yeah,
What?
Was it that difficult,
Okay,
Jeff?
won't go
Jeff,
away.
could someone please escort Jeff out of the room, please? So who here knows what November 20th was?
November 20th.
It was November 20th, Jeff. You get first place. It was also my wife's birthday, but that's not what we're talking about. That was the Salvation Army Red Kettle campaign kickoff.
All right.
And who knows what this is?
The bell.
It is the bell recognizing first place for Rotary Club for raising the most money. And past President Bob, he only accepts citations and first place trophies from Salvation Army. He graciously went there on November 20th. We were recognized for raising almost $12,000. And not to gloat, but second place was about a quarter of that. And if you need me to do the math, I'm happy to do that for you. But he even stood up and said, I'm going to match a $10,000 gift. No, wait. It's Gordon Graham's $100 gift, so we're already moving forward. He already guaranteed us that we're going to win this year, even though we're already a ways behind. So, this year's going to be a little bit different. We're not going to have as many opportunities going to ring bell, but we're going to do some virtual stuff and some opportunities. A few more details. Cindy's going to do the hard stuff.
Okay, so this year we will have real bell ringing as well as a new way of doing it. But first I want to see how many out here are up for doing bell ringing. Okay, great, fantastic. We're set up to do it on the 19th, which is a Saturday. We have 3 locations, and they're limited this year because unfortunately some corporate entities won't let us ring. They just don't want anybody on site. And those are Safeway and Bashas, which have always been great sites for us to bell ring at and great sites for the Salvation Army in general to collect from. But we've got 3 great sites with the Walmart at Speedway and Kolb, always a fantastic site to collect from. I know we have a lot of people, members that are living out in the Rita Ranch Vale area, and we've never had a collection down there. But we're going to do that at the Fry's. It's a fantastic Fry's at Houghton and Rita Ranch. And then Dillard's at Park Place, the Saturday before Christmas, is going to be booming. So yeah, that's going to be a good location. So we've got those 3 locations, and our shifts will be 2 and 3 hours long. We're going to set it up like we did last year. We'll send an email out. Dorina should have it set up by next Tuesday. And as soon as they're set up, we'll send an email out through Club Runner that'll have a link so everybody can sign up to which shift they want to take. And we'll do shifts in pairs. Okay? And if you want to have more than 2 people there, that's fine, but we're asked that you have people signed up in 2s. And we'll send this out to the whole club. So I hope this only means a commitment of about 9 people. If we have more than 9 people interested, the Salvation Army is giving us carte blanche to be able to put more locations out if we want to do that as well. Okay, so we're looking forward to doing that. Now, if you're not interested in going out there, oh, by the way, I want to also point out, the Salvation Army is going to supply us, and I've got them, KN95 masks. So if you want to be extra protected with the medical grade masks, everybody will have those on site, as well as gloves. So I'll have those available, and Curtis and I will run around and make sure everybody has the masks available as and the gloves. So if you don't want to, pardon me? Oh. So if you're not interested in actually going out, either time-wise or concerned about safety or whatever, you're not able to go out and ring the bell, then we also have a virtual way of helping out the Salvation Army this year and contributing to help Bob keep his word and having us win again this year with the Salvation Army Club competition. And you can do it virtually. And you'll notice I put these masks. The Salvation Army were very gracious and gave us the masks so that I could pass them around to everybody. These are really nice masks. They're woven with copper fibers in them. They got them made specially in Korea. The captains that lead up our local Salvation Army here in Tucson are from Korea, and they're very, very good masks. And on the back of them is a special URL link, and we're going to get that up right now so you can see what it would look like. There's a donate button right there, and you can donate on our team. This will donate to the local Salvation Army here through the Rotary Club team, and you can participate. We'll email it to you. You can email it out to your friends and family and ask them to donate on behalf of the Rotary Club through to the Salvation Army, and you can participate that way. So, did you guys use the email access for the Rotary raffle that we did with the card raffle? It was a huge success for us this year, and we're hoping we can see that kind of success with emailing and getting donations again with the Salvation Army donations. Any questions? Sound good?
Thank you, Cindy.
All right.
Thanks for letting me know for that.
Gotcha. I'm having so much fun with this high profiles idea. One of the best things about high profiles, especially when it applies to someone in our club that you know very well, is that you find out things about them that you didn't really ever know and become even better friends. Today, we have a member spotlight. And this is somebody you all know very, very well. And here's some things about them that maybe you don't. Speaking in the member's voice, I was born in Philadelphia and grew up in Delaware County. My first exposure to Rotary was when I was a member of a high school softball team and won the Most Valuable Player Award 2 years in a row and was named Most Valuable Player by the local Rotary Club. Wow. At 18, I worked for a large bank in their accounting department, and I started a secretarial accounting and answering service at the age of 26. What a set of accomplishments. I moved to Tucson in 2007. Any ideas?
Our president.
Dorina! Today, we spotlight our executive director, Dorina York. So a few more things about Dorina. When I moved to Tucson, I was hired by John Lewis at Southern Arizona Community Bank. I worked a short stint as Jim Click's executive assistant. I was then hired by past president Jim Lubinsky in 2012 to be the executive director of the best Rotary Club in the universe. All right. I then became an honorary member of this remarkable Rotary Club in 2015 when Ellie Patterson nominated me. Wow. And you know, there's 10 questions in the high profile, and one of the best questions is this one. What accomplishments are you most proud of? Let me tell you what Dorina York said. This is great. I'm very proud of my work at the Rotary Club of Tucson, but I'm most proud of what makes me a multi-millionaire in life. What a statement. She goes on to further explain. I made my first million when I married my husband, John. I made my second million when my son, Matt, was born. And my third million was when my daughter, Ashley, was born.
couldn't be more proud. This is our member spotlight for Dorena York, and Dorena, we are all proud of you. Whoops. There we go. We are all proud of you. Let's give Dorena a big
All right. Just right up.
I just wanted to give you an update on our ride-in polio team. We've had 10 members. They've all completed a ride, either on a stationary bike or on a loop around Walito River. We have raised to date over $6,000. Remember, your donation is matched 2-to-1 by the Gates Foundation for the polio project, and that it also is credited towards your next Paul Harris Fellow. And I want to thank so much those members who've already contributed. Thanks.
Thanks, Gary. All right. Thank you guys for coming today. I want to give a special thanks to Abby, Sandra, and Whitney for coming today. I hope to see you again. Thank you all who tuned in virtually. I hope you enjoyed the meeting. If you'd like to donate to our scholarship cups, there is a cup at the registration table, and when you're walking by the registration table, make sure you drop off your name tags. Happy birthday, Bruce. Next week, we have Elliot Blixman with the Tucson Jazz Festival. And I have good news. The next 2 meetings are actually, we're going to be taking advantage of our lovely Tucson weather in a meeting outside in the courtyard, enjoying the weather and similar table setup. So it's going to be, make sure to wear sunglasses. And I don't know if this is good news or sad news, but next week my stunt double will be filling in for me. President-elect Mark Irvin will be here. At the helm, because I actually am going on a bull elk hunt.
All right.
Hopefully I don't get kicked in the lungs
Yeah.
by putting it on my husband to carry out the ravine for me, but yeah. Office will be closed, the Rotary office will be closed on Thursday and Friday. What? I know. Can you believe it? And I think that's it. So, if you guys would join me in our close. JFK said, as we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter words, but to live by them. So, here is to Rotarians. May we continue to live by our motto, service above self, to show our gratitude in any way we can. Happy Thanksgiving, you guys.